You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Since 1877, Australia and England have been battling out against each other in Test cricket. Over that time, many players have had the honour of captaining their country in an Ashes series or in an Ashes Test. There have been 42 captains to captain Australia in Ashes cricket and 55 captains to captain England in Ashes cricket. For the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast historical series, we are looking back at all the players who've captained Australia and England in Ashes cricket. In this historical series episode, we are looking back at the Ashes captains who captained Australia in the 1980s. Kim Hughes was a top-order batsman that played Test cricket for Australia during the late 1970s to the mid-1980s. His Test career spanned from 1977 to 1984. He scored 4,415 runs at 37.41 with 9 centuries and a highest score of 213. He scored his first Test century in his fourth Test against England at the Gabba in 1978. By his 11th Test, he led Australia to victory as Test captain. He became Australia's 37th Test captain and took over from Greg Chappell. His Ashes captaincy reign spanned from 1981 to 1981 and led Australia one Ashes series. In that time, he led Australia to an Ashes series defeat in 1981. In 6 tests, he won 1, lost 3 and drawn 2. His Ashes record saw him score 1,499 runs at 38.43 with 3 centuries. Highest score of 137 in 22 Ashes tests between 1977 to 1983. For Hughes, the 1981 Ashes series in England was tough. Taking over the captaincy reins after Captain Greg Chappell made himself unavailable for selection for the tour. A series where Australia was completely outplayed and led to the crushing defeat at Headingley, where Ian Botham and Bob Willis helped England to victory. A few years later, Hughes resigned from the captaincy in 1984-85. During the Test series against the West Indies, Allan Border took over the captaincy of the Australian Test team. Allan Border is considered to be the captain that made Australian cricket what it is today. He is one of Australian cricket's great captains and great batsmen. Became the first Australian batsman to score 10,000 Test runs and the first to 11,000 Test runs in Test cricket. In a Test career that spanned from 1978 to 1993, he played 156 Test matches, scored 11,174 runs at 50.56 with 27 centuries, with a highest score of 205. He captained Australia in 93 Test matches and played 153 consecutive Test matches. He became Australia's 38th Test captain, taking over from Kim Hughes, who resigned during the 1984-85 Test series against the West Indies. His Ashes captaincy reign spanned from 1985 to 1993 and led Australia in 5 Ashes series. In that time, he led Australia to 3 Ashes series victories in 1989, 1990, 91 and 1993. He lost 2 series in 1985 and 1986-87. In 29 tests, he won 13, lost 6 and drawn 10. His Ashes record was just like a mirror image of his Test record, scoring 3,548 runs at 56.31 with 8 centuries, high score of 200 not out, in 47 Ashes tests between 1978 to 1993. Border, who was a reluctant captain, took over an Australian team in the 1980s who was struggling badly and didn't win a Test series or a Test match for some time. But in 1989, he, along with coach Bob Simpson, were responsible for Australia's Ashes dominance that lasted for more than 16 years. No one gave the Australians a chance to win the Ashes in 1989, but under Border's leadership, Australia won 4-0 in the best of 6, which kicked off Australia's golden period, not only in Ashes cricket, but it led to Australia dominating world cricket for the years to come. In our next historical series episode, we are looking back at the Ashes captains who captained Australia in the 1990s.